Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season 1 finale of Jupiter's Legacy. A great season finale. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. This was a short season finale. I thought that was kind of interesting. It's only 36 minutes maybe? Usually a season finale would technically be in some cases be longer, but it's interesting. There's at least 2 or 3 episodes in this season that are 30 minutes long, which is kind of interesting. You don't really see that happen too much, but I thought that was kind of interesting. The fact is, there's still quite a bit that goes down in this season finale. The fact is that while we're still dealing with the Walt situation, obviously Raiko is trying to keep Black Star's mind open so that Walt can get out, but obviously things are kind of getting worse on that front. And on the outside, things get worse because Black Star breaks out and is basically holding the Supermax hostage. And so obviously beforehand, Brandon shows up because he had heard from his dad about all the stuff that was going down. So, and obviously his dad kind of apologizes about everything because for him it's he ends up opening up that the reason why he holds on so tightly to Brandon is because it's he lost Skyfox. George was a brother to him, a friend he believed that he could trust and everything, and to have that person betray him, turn into what they kind of talk about it later on, where it's Chloe and Hutch are, because Chloe's kind of upset that Hutch isn't opening up all the way. It's oh, I'm still the Utopian's daughter in your eyes, so you're not going to open up to me. But he's yeah, but you don't open up to me because both of us hide certain aspects of our lives away from each other. It's just what we do. And it's yeah, the world's greatest supervillain, the son of the world's greatest supervillain, and the daughter of the world's greatest superhero. How did we think this was going to work out? So because of that, kind of it's the interesting parallels actually, because their relationship is a different dynamic, but it's very similar to George and Sheldon's. Even to the point in the past, Sheldon's bringing it up to Walt, saying just because because I'm really close to George and everything doesn't have anything to do with our bond. Our bond is so strong and so tight. No matter how close I get to George, there's always going to be our bond. They're close, and also maybe this superhero thing also presented him an opportunity to get closer and everything. So we did hear an interesting thing I thought was fascinating, where it's well, George is the only one that wore a mask. It's Walt was maybe we should kind of do the secret identity thing. It seems like he does it as well. He's if it's all right with you, I'll wear the mask so no one finds out who we are. But it's interesting that George wears it all the time. So it seems like he kind of stopped being George, probably because it's George, there's too much baggage, there's too much there. So I was I'm going to leave who I was behind. I'm just going to be Skyfox all the time. So it seems like he almost kind of did similar to Sheldon. Sheldon seems like he kind of just fully embraced being the Utopian to a certain extent, whereas everyone else tried to ground and kind of maintain some version of who they were. Also, I do get a correction on I guess it's because they're able to move fast, kind of Speedster, the Flash. They're how he can throw lightning, they generate light and energy. So it's yeah, but they are speedsters. I thought so when his daughter was beating up on Flash, she was moving fast. I thought so, but I just wasn't clear on that. But I'm an idiot. Should have figured as much, considering Fitz is in a wheelchair now, while that impacts him even more. His body can still generate the light, he just can't move as fast as his legs and everything. We still don't know how that happened though. But circling back to the whole point I was making, because of that, Sheldon, going back to my point, Sheldon he realizes he's kind of handled the whole thing with Brandon too wrong, but Brandon's no, I completely understand, Dad. He's the fact of the matter is, I never realized how much the code meant to me until I said it to Petra. Hearing me, when he's usually I recite it like it's a script, but when I was talking to Petra, talking to someone who had their doubts, I truly believed it and recognized how important the code is, not just in the grand scheme of things, but how important it is to me. So both of them worked together to go deal with the Black Star situation, which turns ugly because he has Brandon, and now it's the inverse of the first episode, and it's what Brandon said at the beginning, where it's if it was you, you would have done it to save me, like I did it to save you and Mom and Dad. And I was foreshadowing that circumstance and to be here, and Black Star's okay, you have a choice. You kill me, and if you do that, the belief in what the Union represent will fall apart. If you don't, all the kids and all those who falter in believing in the code already will leave you behind, because it's oh, you were willing to put the code so first that you were willing to let your own son die, so it's what are you going to do? And even poking at the fact is, oh, you're hesitating, wow, your son didn't hesitate when the time came. He came full forward, killed that clone. So what are you going to do? And this is that moment of kind of testing him. And though Petra steps in, the question would have been like, well, what was he going to do? He did light up his eyes. He was ready to do it because he wasn't going to let his son die. Luckily, they worked together to put him down. But then, Brandon's still rolling over and over in his mind his dad's words. They haven't left him. Now, with the grand scheme of things, it makes you wonder if that was done on purpose. That was kind of the reason why those words play over and over again. Maybe it's not just those are playing over and over again in Brandon's mind. Maybe someone's planting them. That's what I'm wondering. Every time we've ever heard those words play over again, maybe it wasn't necessarily in Brandon's head, but more so someone putting them there to force Brandon to kind of relive that over and over again. Maybe I'm overthinking that, but we'll see. But obviously when the time came, Brandon starts beating on Black Star, because I call him Death Star, beats him up, and then, Sheldon was kind of telling him no, but Brandon stops that. He's like, I wasn't going to let you die, son. He's like, I know, Dad, but Sheldon can see the look on his son's face. For one, the fact is he was going to go that far is, one thing, but it's also the fact is he's willing to go that far, and I'm not willing to, but also, he lit up his eyes, but it doesn't matter for Brandon. It's still the thing that you hesitated, and it's we will never know. He could say all that, I would have done this. Would he have actually gone through it? He heated up his eyes, but would he have actually done it? Would he try to find another way? That's the thing. He put Brandon through all this crap saying, early on, oh, you would have found, there's a million different ways it could have handled this. You were in that circumstance, and you didn't find a proper solution. If it wasn't for Petra showing up, who knows how that could have ended. There was a lose-lose situation in that regard, but, we'll never know, Even he will never know what he would have done. He can think all in his heart, I would have done it. I would have never let you die. But it's would I have actually done what was necessary in that situation? What would have been the necessary course of action? That's the complicated nature of the whole thing. But back inside of once I did it in Black Star's mind, he ends up encountering Skyfox, and I think it's so interesting because it's the young George from the younger George, and then he flips the table and he's in his Skyfox uniform, and he's got the gray, so it's yeah, he's definitely older. It's the more modern version of him. He's and he goes toe to toe with Walt. Walt's kind of getting his ass handed to him because it's because the whole conversation is and this is something Sheldon had brought up with Brandon, is the fact is that he believed that there were conversations held, but it's Skyfox believed that they could do more, do more good than what they were doing, so he didn't believe in what, the Union believed anymore. So it was a situation of that's why he kind of went off on his own. It's Sheldon tried to say, we spoke about, how we should handle things, but for him, it's those words kind of ran, they kind of rang hollow in the grand scheme of things, for him at the very least. So I thought that was fascinating. But kind of having that come back to him, it's Grace wanting to get inside of Black Star's mind to help out, and so they both go toe to toe with George, but George has still got the advantage in being at the end of the day, it's oh, I'm not even going to kill you, I'm going to show you what the future is going to be, and none of you are going to be able to stop what's coming. So eventually when they do pop out, it's all right, I should show Sheldon first, and Grace so no, show me, and she shows the future where it's Skyfox is there, and he's killed both Brandon and Sheldon, and it's he set everything in motion. He created a copy of Black Star. He knew that I'd go in there in Black Star's mind and go inside of Black Star's mind, and he would set up this ambush and everything. And it's well, we won't let Skyfox do what he's doing. We will get justice, we will take him down. It's and almost implying oh, we're going to kill him, but then she was no, we're going to bring him to justice. So we'll see where things kind of go on that front. But another angle to this before we kind of tie into the end result of everything is we have Hutch letting them know his crew hey, I got one job, but they're no, you're hitting the Utopian's door, smashing, and it's no, we're not going to be involved in that. We already got screwed over because of your situation with the big guy. I mean, to be fair, I wonder if they know that the big guy's dead, that he handled that. I mean, I guess they're not as stressed about their lives, so they know he handled that, so he kind of broke his code. But they were nah, we're not about to be screwed over when the Utopian comes crashing down, so they kind of leave him. So he goes to China and handles things himself. Sadly, he ends up sealing himself in a hermetically sealed room, I guess would be, I think it's the term for it. It's a room where there's no air in it. It's kind of designed like that to kind of keep everything pressurized, but also make it impossible for someone to get inside, especially when you teleport inside. I think it seems like the room's designed like that, even from the outside, that if you go in there, like, there's no oxygen, like, because eventually he gets attacked by, because he can't even say loft because there's no oxygen in his air, so he can't breathe, so he has to audibly say the word. Kind of a disadvantage of that weapon, which also found out that weapon's not even George's weapon. That weapon is actually, it's actually Dr. It's Richard's weapon, which was like, not less George just made a copy of it, or it's just like somehow, I don't know. Well, because he supposedly killed, I don't know. Because once again, that was always something that was kind of confusing me, like, because I kept thinking, like, George killed Skyfox, but it's like, no, he is Skyfox. So not unless he ended up killing Richard and ended up stealing that, and that's how that came up in Hutch's possessions, like, but that, because we also heard inside of Walt's mind, it's like, oh, you guys, as the Union, came together and beat the living shit out of me in front of my own son. It's like, is that true? Oh, that's interesting that you guys did that, but I guess it's like, yeah, considering what he did, I guess they were just like, and it's also interesting that they didn't. I wonder, did they lock him up and did he just get away, or is it because he is their friend, because he was someone that was important to them, that they kind of let him slide even though they shouldn't have, and that's how he got away? I don't know. I'm curious. Like, there's still so much to that story we haven't dived into. We've only touched a fraction of the past. Once again, I did think it was kind of ironic, because the point is, like I said, in the past, it's them in a point of despair lifting up to hope, whereas present day, it's like they start at hope and kind of drift down into despair. So I think, like I said, even at the end of the season, I figured it was going to do that, and it's still kind of neat to see how they handled that, especially because, lo and behold, who shows up but Chloe to save Hutch. And it's even interesting being like, oh, how'd you know to find me? It's like, oh, I've been secretly following you the entire time. And I love that guy shoots her in the head, and she's like, really? And she says it in Mandarin too. It's like, wait, whoa, you speak a lot of language. That's interesting. It's almost like, because even Hutch was like, whoa, you know Mandarin? Holy shit. And ends up once again just shows it's also interesting too, because I don't know if that really came up showcasing the fact is that no, because it came up earlier in the season, like those lasers are being fired at them and they're bounced off, but like, yeah, it's like they're made of steel, they're bulletproof. So I thought that was kind of fascinating. But when it was all said and done, they get what he came there for, and he shows her his secret room, and it's like, what's this for? It's like, yeah, this could be a weapon to punch a hole in the most powerful being on the planet. She's like, are you going to use it against my dad? And it's like, nope, I'm going to use it to find mine. And it's like, and then what are you going to do? At first I was like, is he going to kill his dad? Probably get answers from his dad. It's like, yeah, you've been out of my life, like, despite everything. Because his mom, once again, told him, like, oh, yeah, the Union turned against him. And now, in retrospect, with everything kind of set up what it is at the end, because, Walt's talking to Raiko, and it's like, okay, so what's this all about? And she kind of figured it all out about what he's really been up to. It's like, you're the one that made the copy Black Star. I had a feeling, but then I had this inkling, like, could it be Walt? But I was like, nah, not really 100% said. Like, yeah, he seemed like he was kind of an extremist in certain regards. Like, he didn't really agree with the code. Obviously, everyone else is wavering about the code, but I wasn't expecting him to. I was just like, oh, I guess it is Skyfall. I didn't expect that all to be a complete and utter BS. Even the fact is that vision he showed Grace, it's like, I guess the point is now it's like, he's got everyone looking at Skyfox, and eventually is going to get to the point that he's going to push the Union until, like, well, for one, he said, because, Raiko says that everything's been for the point to, like, cause the Union to collapse. Because once they'll collapse, they'll be looking for new leadership. Because for him, it's like, the way the world is now is because of Sheldon, because of his damn code, not governing the world and not killing. Like, if we had, from the very beginning, he made it clear, like, and that should have been the point and the key sign, too, because he made it clear from the beginning that he didn't agree with the way Sheldon handled things in many different regards. In the past, because, once again, Sheldon was kind of the golden boy. He was chosen. He's the one that had the vision and stuff like that. Because even Grace being like, why did we get these powers? And he joked and says, oh, so we can take control of the world. And he's like, why can't no one here take a joke? It's like, oh, but if we know anyone that's going to do it. And they kind of looked at Skyfox all joking. And George has to be like, really? But it's like, the sad thing is, it's like your own brother you should have been looking out for. It's like, for him, he's so worried. He's lost Chloe. He feels like he's losing Brandon. He lost George, not realizing kind of the backstabbing that's happening right in front of him. But for, Walt, he believes that this is the right thing to do. And that's why I'm wondering, like, why the Union turned against Skyfox have been BS, you know? Because, yes, he sees things a certain way, but, you know, obviously there's always been beef between Walt and George, because even in the past, like, Sheldon would be like, oh, you guys got to put that aside and stuff like that. So they see the world in a similar Walt way, but I think Walt is willing to go a lot further than maybe Skyfox did. I don't know. So now it begs the question, like, once again, like, now that Hutch is like, oh, I'm going to find my dad, it's like, is he going to be the one to reveal things? Like, where has he been the entire time? That means he hasn't retaliated against the Union and everything. So, once again, like, maybe Walt manipulated the situation to kind of paint a narrative. Like he is now, blaming everything on Skyfox. Maybe he did it back then, too, you know? I don't think so, but I think he is doing it now. And it's like, well, Skyfox is already the villain, so why not, you know, give them a villain to fight and chase after while I'm basically dismantling the Union and kind of, you know, pretending like I'm there for my brother. It's like, oh, you need me to talk to Brandon? I'll talk to him. It's like, oh, like, because the whole point is to kind of tear Brandon away. Because what he's going to need is someone that's powerful. Because he even said to himself, like, I'm not nearly as strong as you and your dad. Like, Sheldon is at the top tier right now, so it's like he's going to need someone who can eventually rise up and challenge him, and that's going to potentially be Brandon. So what he's going to do is manipulate Brandon, like get him more on his side, because now he's pushed and prodded everything to fit. He's also the one that released Black Star. I wonder, he was already in Black Star's mind, so he could have implanted all the stuff that Black Star said. He could have created the situation of like, and prodding and pushing Sheldon to make him question himself, to make Brandon question him. Like this, there's no telling how far this goes, because it was actually him in the beginning that suggested Skyfox, because he was like, oh, only person I know that could build something like this, you know, George, Skyfox, you know, so like he already set that so much in motion. So once again, like I said, it's just kind of a sad thing to kind of see everything kind of come full circle like that in that regard. Like I said, despair to hope to despair, circumstances, and even at the very end, you know, Raiko being like, hey, you can trust me, and it's like, he's like, oh, you know, I was hoping that, you know, I truly could believe you, that you would take my side at the end of things, but you didn't. And we see that he ends up killing her, which I was like, no! I was hoping we'd get more Anaconda in the future, but that sucks, dude. Also effed up that shows you that he believes in this so much that he's willing to kill his own daughter. Because that showcases, because she says, like, I don't care about, like, you know, the Union, I don't care about America, I don't care about the world, but it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, she would have gone to them and told them, like, despite everything, it's like, he killed her because it's like, I can't trust that you will keep your mouth quiet, because I thought you would have chosen my side. It's not like you didn't choose my side and you chose nothing. Even though she says that, I think for him it's still a thing of, you would have gone to Sheldon and warned them about what's to come. So he's also sending Grace spiraling too, because she's already in a vulnerable space, but also showing her a vision of her husband and her son being dead. Like, that's going to push her over the edge, so that when Skyfox does come back into the story, she won't listen to him and says, I'll bring him to justice, but she might end up killing him beforehand. But Chloe might be the figure, because of her and Hutch getting close. That might be an angle to this that, like, Walt didn't see coming, and that might be the means to undermine everything. That relationship might be the outlier that can kind of potentially change everything. You know, we'll have to see, but whether that ends up being the case or not. But it sets up a lot of interesting things ultimately for the future, you know? So, like I said, there's still a lot about their past as heroes. Like I said, we've seen them go to the island and become heroes and everything, and we get a little peek in them doing their hero thing, you know, back then, but there's still decades of stories to tell on that front, to understand how we got to where we are now with the Union and everything. Once again, like how Fitz ended up where he did, why things ended up the way they did with Skyfox. We heard the conversations, but like to see and understand his perspective on things, how we got there with Hutch, how we got there with Chloe. Like, we got bits and pieces. I don't know if they'll go necessarily into that past of like how we got there with Chloe, because I think it's just like their story is being told present day, and we're kind of getting an understanding from where they are right now to understand how they got there. So I'd be so curious to see like how the rest of the Union got built out and everything. More about their powers. Once again, why were they chosen? Where did that come from? Like, was that like some alien species that left it there to test other beings? Like, are there other beings on other planets that have taking that test, or is that just something for Earth? Well, keep in mind a lot of that, potentially, for what the future might hold. At the time of me recording this, which it's May 9th, it hasn't been announced whether or not Jupiter's Legacy is coming back for season 2. Come as no surprise, considering it's only been out for like 2 days. But I'd really be curious to see. I really hope it does come back with a season 2, because I'd love to see where they go forward with what they've set up. What Walt's plan looks like. Maybe even go looking into the past, kind of understanding how Walt got to like where he is. Like, even like I said, you see elements of it there in the past of just like some of the conversations he had, considering like, the conversations he's had with Sheldon about like things with their father. It's like the whole thing of like, oh yeah, you and George need to bury the hatchet. Just like, no, Sheldon, you should have focused on the you and everything, because like Walt held a lot of secret resentment for you and just the way you've operated, and the way the world is now just kind of gives them even more an excuse to lean into it, because it's a thing of, you didn't listen to me. You didn't listen to me then, you don't listen to me now. I told you time and time again. Well, he did try to say like he was going to try and listen more. Sheldon did, so we'll see if that ends up being a possibility in the future. But like I said, hope we get to second season or second volume, because I'd love to see where it takes us. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.